Welcome back everyone, I'm so glad to have you here, because today we're going to step back almost 100 years to look at one of the most legendary cars ever built, the 1927 Ford Model T. Now this wasn't just any car, this was the car that shaped the modern world, the car that took driving out of the hands of the wealthy elite and put it into the reach of everyday families, workers, and farmers. By the time 1927 rolled around, the Model T had already been in production for nearly 2 decades, and what makes this year so special is that it was the very last year it was produced before Ford replaced it with the Model A. That means the 1927 Model T is both a continuation of a proven formula and the closing chapter of a story that forever changed the way we move. When Henry Ford first introduced the Model T in 1908, the goal wasn't just to build another car. He wanted to create something reliable, affordable, and practical that the average person could buy and maintain without needing special skills or deep pockets. To achieve that, Ford pioneered the moving assembly line, which drastically cut down on production costs and time. By the 1920s, this innovation allowed Ford to sell millions of cars at prices most people could afford. By the time the final car rolled off the line in 1927, more than 15 million Model Ts had been built. To put that in perspective, that was more than any other car in the world at that time, and it showed just how deeply this machine had penetrated everyday life. Looking at the 1927 version, you still see the simple, boxy design that the Model T was famous for. It wasn't flashy, and it wasn't meant to be. This was a car designed with utility in mind. Ford offered several body styles, including a 2-door roadster, a 4-door touring car, a coupe, a sedan, and even a pickup truck. Each body had the same unmistakable charm: tall, upright lines, large fenders, and a stance that looked sturdy and purposeful. But by the mid-1920s, Ford had made some changes to keep the Model T from looking too outdated. In 1926, the body was lowered and widened slightly, giving it a sleeker profile compared to earlier versions. That look carried into 1927, making the final models appear a little more modern, though still unmistakably a Model T. For many years, the famous line attributed to Henry Ford was, "You can have any color you want, as long as it's black." That was true during the peak of production when efficiency mattered most, but by 1926 and 1927, Ford began offering colors again, including maroon, green, and gray depending on the model. This gave customers a small touch of individuality, which was important because rival companies like Chevrolet were already offering cars in a range of attractive styles and finishes. Ford's decision to expand options in the final years was a way to keep up with customer demand. Under the hood, the Model T carried its signature 4-cylinder engine. It was a 2.9-liter motor producing around 20 horsepower. That may sound tiny today, but in the 1920s it was enough to move the lightweight car at speeds up to 40 or 45 miles per hour. What made this engine so remarkable wasn't its power but its ruggedness and simplicity. It was famously easy to work on. A farmer or small-town driver could fix most problems with basic tools, and replacement parts were cheap and widely available. This made the Model T not only affordable to buy but also affordable to keep on the road. In rural America especially, that mattered a lot. The car was built to withstand dirt roads, rough conditions, and constant use, which helped earn it a reputation as nearly indestructible. The transmission was another unique feature. Instead of a conventional gear lever, the Model T used a 2-speed planetary gearbox, controlled by pedals. To modern drivers, the system feels strange. The left pedal handled low and high gears, the middle pedal worked for reverse, and the right pedal was the brake. The throttle was a lever on the steering column rather than a foot pedal. Driving a Model T required practice and coordination, but once you got the hang of it, it was functional and effective. It was all part of Ford's philosophy of designing a car that was different but still practical enough for anyone willing to learn. On the road, the Model T was not about comfort or speed but about reliability and utility. Steering was heavy compared to modern cars, braking distances were long because it used mechanical brakes rather than hydraulic systems, and the ride could be bouncy over rough terrain. But for the time, it was more than acceptable, and most importantly, it allowed people to travel distances that would have been unthinkable on horseback or by wagon. Suddenly, families could visit relatives miles away, farmers could bring goods to market faster, and small businesses could expand their reach. This was a machine that literally expanded people's worlds. Step inside the cabin of a 1927 Model T and you're greeted with the same no-frills philosophy. The dashboard was sparse, often just an ammeter and an ignition switch. Some cars didn't even come with a speedometer. Seats were functional rather than plush, with simple leather or fabric upholstery. Comfort was basic, but again, that wasn't the selling point. What buyers cared about was freedom, practicality, and affordability, and the Model T delivered all three. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Model T was its adaptability. People customized and modified these cars in countless ways. Owners turned them into tractors, tow trucks, delivery vans, or even makeshift race cars. Aftermarket companies thrived, selling all kinds of add-ons, from stronger lights to weatherproof enclosures. In many rural areas, the Model T was more than just a car, it was a lifeline that served multiple roles in daily life. This adaptability helped the car stay relevant for nearly 2 decades despite fierce competition. By 1927, however, times were changing. Rival automakers were offering cars with more horsepower, better styling, and more comfort, all at competitive prices. Chevrolet in particular was becoming a serious threat. The Model T, as beloved as it was beginning to feel outdated. Henry Ford resisted change for as long as possible, but even he realized that the time had come to move on. On May 26, 1927, the final Model T rolled off the line, closing one of the most important chapters in automotive history and paving the way for the Ford Model A, which would carry the company forward. When you look back at the 1927 Ford Model T today, you can't judge it purely by modern standards of performance or luxury. This wasn't a car built for thrill seekers or for showing off. It was built for ordinary people who needed a way to get from one place to another reliably and affordably. It changed lives, transformed industries, and even reshaped cities by making personal transportation accessible to millions. The Model T wasn't just a car, it was a movement. The 1927 version represents the end of that movement, but also the culmination of everything that made it great. Collectors today cherish the 1927 Model T not just for its mechanical charm but for what it represents. Owning one is like holding a piece of history in your hands, and driving one feels like stepping back in time to experience the roots of modern motoring. It's slow, it's quirky, and it takes patience, but that's exactly what makes it magical. You're not just driving a car, you're driving the car that put the world on wheels. And with that, we wrap up this detailed look at the 1927 Ford Model T. I hope you enjoyed this journey back to the origins of everyday motoring. If you want to keep exploring the history and stories of cars that shaped our world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join me here at VeloView.